On April 1st of this year, the U.S. Supreme Court heard probably what must be the most important case that it's heard in a long time. And it deals with citizenship. You being a citizen, me being a citizen, and whoever is born here being a citizen in the United States. This court was argued for 2 hours. Both sides got to speak their piece, if you will, and even the President of the United States, for the first time in history, actually attended the arguments that happened in the Supreme Court. Here's what they're arguing about. Donald Trump sent out an executive order saying, if you're an illegal alien and that child that you have is born in the United States, it's not automatically a citizen. And you're saying, well, wait a minute. The 14th Amendment clearly states that. You're born here in the U.S., you're a citizen. Here's something to understand about that, the 14th Amendment, because here's what it says. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and, that's the important line, and secondary requirement, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's the point that's being argued. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If someone's an illegal alien, comes to this country, gives birth to their child, who are they subject to? The jurisdiction of what country? The country they're from. That's what's being argued in the U.S. Supreme Court, and that's what they're going to have to decide if that's the real rule. Now, a lot of people say, well, hey, wait a minute, 1898, there was a decision, 1898, the Joachim Ark decision in the Supreme Court. Well, back then, folks, there was something going on. It's a Chinese couple who were domiciled in the United States and had been for years, wanted to become citizens, but they were excluded by a thing called the Chinese Exclusion Act. Way back then, Chinese people really weren't allowed to become citizens. That was the way they were treated back then. But the Supreme Court says, wait a minute, English common law says, regardless, it's who you show your deference to. And they were showing it to the United States of America, and they said, okay, then their child's a citizen, because they were under the jurisdiction of the United States, and that's what they wanted, to become citizens, but were not given that opportunity because they were treated that way. Well, that's what the argument is going. So the other side is arguing the 1898 decision. But back in 1868, well, it was done again, the Civil Rights Act, and that one, the author of the civil rights of that particular act, his name was Senator Lyman Trumbull of Illinois. That's the guy who later wrote this. He explained the amendment that he wrote. He said, what do we mean by subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? Here's what he said, quote, not owning allegiance to anybody else. That's what it means, unquote. So the guy who wrote the amendment says, that's someone who doesn't owe allegiance to anybody else. Somebody here illegally, they owe their allegiance to another country. Hence, that child is not a citizen. Now, let me tell you what's going on, what we've discovered. Do you know that about 1.5 million Chinese were born in this country? Chinese kids. Their rich billionaire parents brought the ladies, the mothers, the wives, whatever, to the United States to have their child in the United States become an automatic citizen and bring them back later on to vote in America. Do you understand what 1.5 million Chinese could do to an election if they chose to? Well, that's what this is all about, folks. Federal agents have discovered in L.A. County, Orange County, and San Bernardino counties a network of 20 plus hotel chains, hotels who are literally taking in women, especially women from China, and for the sole purpose of giving birth in the United States. This is a ring, for crying out loud, where pregnant women, most of them from China, travel to the U.S., give birth in these hotels and these hospitals. Clients pay anywhere between $15,000 and $80,000 for the package, which includes their housing, their coaching to conceal the fact they're pregnant, transportation, and post-birth services. And this is what's been going on. 1.5 million. In L.A., Orange County, and San Bernardino counties, there's 20 locations that are doing this. This is what's going on, folks. And if you want to see the America being overrun by countries, if the Supreme Court says, no, anybody who's born here gets to be a citizen. I'm from El Paso, Texas. I used to see women from Mexico come to the United States, have their kid in the United States, and suddenly chain migration. They get to come in, bring the kid. He's a citizen. Everybody else gets to come in. This is the game. This is the loophole. This is what's been played. Now it's in the Supreme Court. And will the Supreme Court take this up and finally decide Does that "and" mean something or does it not? Bearing allegiance to. That's what this is all about. When will the Supreme Court rule? I do not know. But understand something. This is the biggest case the Supreme Court has heard in many, many decades. And this will control and result in how the United States ends up being invaded by 170 million people who want to come to America, or people who want to come to America know, hey, if I had my kid here, he's a citizen, I can bring everybody else in. That's the game that's being played. And it's been played for a long time, and President Trump wants to put an end to it. And maybe he's right. And now you know.